Aloha everyone, this is Leimomi Keliikuli, Intuitive Soul Line Mindset Co-Chair, and I'm here for my LeimomiTV interview series, and we're so excited to have Willow here, and we are going to talk about access your intuition with ease and purpose. So thank you so much for taking some time to share with us your story, share your master genius. And why don't you share with us first and tell us, what who you are, what you do, like more about what your genius is all about.
Mm-hmm. So my name is Willow Bradner, and I'm what I call an accidental psychic, which I think 90% of us are technically accidental psychics. What I do, though, is help people hone their inner intuition so that they can sort of drive a more purposeful life. What I've noticed in working with people is that it appears that our trust zone, trust being intuition, is off caliber, and we've sort of replaced trust with what we call the ego. And the ego is that inner critic, that inner judge inside that really seems to be predominantly driving the bus for most of us. And I work with clients one-to-one to really help them bolster and boost up their inner intuition so that they can start predictably and more carefully really making choices, impactful choices for their life that are more heart-centered, that are more real for them, and are less fear-based. And I came to this sort of aspect of my life, as I said, accidentally as a psychic. And it's been through the process of really working one-to-one on an intuitive psychic level, doing psychic readings, that I came to my own personal genius, which was really helping people discover this for themselves as well.
Oh, I love that you're helping other people become psychic and to use that intuition to do their purposeful work. And I love that we're talking about doing it with ease and flow.
Yes. Yes.
Because I'm sure through your process, being accidentally psychic, right? Like a lot of things you probably went through that you struggled with. And so this is why also you want to help people to go through that process more easily, right? Because you maybe didn't have like all the tools that you have now.
It's sort of twofold. What I discovered was that, so I was a happy hairstylist. I was a very successful entrepreneur, business owner. I ran 2 successful hair salons. And so as this thing showed up, I did what anybody does in that situation. I found people who were going to train me. And what I discovered was, for myself anyways, I am not a dogmatic spiritual practitioner. I hadn't read all the books. I didn't know all the people. I still don't care about all the people or all the books or all the things. What I wanted was just an easy, normal way to sort of this understanding of what intuition was, what spiritualism was, and what psychic equaled. And through the process of sort of tearing down the original walls of it, I discovered really the easier essence of what it means to be intuitive. And that's why I transition that word trust in a lot of my work, because ultimately, isn't that what this is? Isn't intuition ultimately trusting yourself and your voice and what's true for you? And so that becomes the easiness of it, is like really understanding the difference of intuition into the word trust, and the ease of it being that it's really just giving yourself permission to be yourself. And psychic isn't scary then, and intuition isn't scary then. And it's not this woo special thing that's reserved for other people.
Yeah, I think we have this like thinking that it's like super special, right? And I'm a special person, but actually just normal person, just with some extra.
Yeah, I think, and it's like, it's extra, but I feel like everybody has an extra. Like I've been doing a lot of research and working with a lot of business owners, what I would consider successful business owners as of late. And what I think is so interesting is like, there's pieces of me where I'm like, oh, I'm speaking to a designer or a decorator. And I'm like, oh, the zone of genius that your brain has to see and visualize space and to put things carefully in that space using a pillow or a throw blanket or a light fixture blows my mind, because that's not a special item that I have. But I think innately, my intuition or my ability to psychically see for people what they can't see is no different than somebody intuitively knowing where a pillow and a throw blanket goes. I think they're the same. We are just not giving it the same credit.
True. And the things that we think is special is usually somebody else's rather than our own. So you're really helping them to just like hone in and trust, like, hey, this thing that I have is so much more beautiful than I can ever imagine.
Yeah. I think we are living in a time right now where we're putting a lot of pressure on this word purpose. And that word purpose, and we also love to throw passion in, like you can't have a purpose unless you have a passion, and you need both of them. So then we start second guessing what feels innately true for us. Because what if our purpose truly is to wake up every morning and have a dance party and feel joy, instead of like creating a career around it? What if our purpose is to be with our family? What if it's just so simple? And I think that that is also the easy part, is like when you begin to really just listen and trust here in yourself, you still show up for work every day. You still do the things that maybe you have to do, that are in our nature to have to do, but you're adding in the simplicities that actually feel right for you. Maybe you wake up every morning and decide, I really do love to stretch, or I just really do love to lay in bed and drink coffee in the morning. Whatever it is that you trust to be yours, you're no longer in comparison with somebody else. You're no longer trying to push your own limitations, but rather you're trying to enjoy who you are a little bit more.
I love that. And that's kind of also how you create a life of success, right? It's based around what really lights you up, what feels really good in that moment. And that's really our purpose, is to share that light and to be that thing that lights us up. So if it's like sharing coffee, then, you know, having a coffee shop is awesome, right?
Right.
Like
right.
it's so simple, but we think it's so like extra special. So we never really get to experience the passion and the true purpose, because we kind of go like, oh, because I need money, I need to work my 9-to-5 job, and making those excuses rather than, hey, I just really want to share coffee with people.
Right. Whatever and that's the thing, is I just think we are ignoring the voice inside of us that's really asking for what it wants. And I think that we have a million reasons and excuses, and some of them are frankly very viable. I mean, we do have to put a roof over our head. We do ultimately want to have clean clothes and food in our belly. I think all of those are legitimate. But I think the curiosity is that we get hung up intuitively on the how. Like we break down from the ego to the intuition on the how. And it's like, especially in entrepreneurship, what I've recognized is that it seems that intuitively we come into a business. It's like we got the call and we're like, ooh, I got the call. I'm going to start a business in whatever arena is really exciting to me. And then we take, let's say, the coffee house. We decide we're going to run the coffee house because we want to hang out with people and be a community maker. And we get the call and we make the coffee house, and we immediately hand it over to the ego aspect of our being. We hand it over to the fear accountant of our lives. And suddenly we forget the why we decided to do it, or we get scared because the how feels too big. And we stop really following suit to the intuitive aspect. But I believe that when we are living in the intuition actually answers the how. It actually answers the why. And it helps even answer a lot of the what that goes into creating the life that we want. But we tend to fish it over to the fear version of ourselves and the critic and the judge.
Mm-hmm. And I think that goes back to our topic about ease and flow, right? Like, to me, intuition is actually flow. When you
Totally
follow that
flow. Mm-hmm.
So how would you define that? Like, how does that go together, intuition, flow?
Well, I think it's just that. Intuition to me, again, just to go back to the easy word, is trust. And I feel like when we're in trust, we are not in defense. And so like the antithesis of flow is defense. I always see it as this. The person who is in intuition can literally lay on their back with their eyes closed and flow down the river. And the person who is in a more ego basis with a sometimes sometimes I'm intuitive, is in the river, hanging onto a rock. They can feel the water rushing past them, so they feel the flow, but they're not actually in the flow because they're clinging to the rock for safety, right? And security. And so many of us, let's just be really honest, so many of us are clinging to that rock 90% of our lives, praying that like we don't actually get caught in the flow. But what I think is really interesting is like when you let go and you let the water float you down river, like it's going to take you to a place unknown. And I think being in the flow is trusting in whatever the outcome is. And what most of us are trying to do predictably is create an expectation and create an outcome. And I see this a lot, and I don't know if you feel this similarly, but I see this a lot in people who are teaching, preaching, and trying to manifest. That getting caught in the expectation of it, or getting caught in the time frame or the outcome of what they want to have happen in the end, that it actually prevents the flow.
Mm-hmm. So true. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I like that analogy because it's so true. Like we have times where we go and we play in the water, we go, with the flow, and other times you hold on to the rock and like waiting, wonder why the heck like flow isn't happening, when you just have to like let that go and trust, like, again, hey, I'm going to go down the river. I'm going to end up where I'm supposed to be.
Right.
It's a journey.
It's that unknown. Unknown is very uncomfortable. We all want to see around the bend. And I mean, as a psychic, people clearly come to me to see around the bend. That's not something I offer.
Right.
I will validate you. And if the bend is really to be seen, then it'll show up. But I am not here to be a seer for you. Like, you are going to have to learn trust if you work with me.
Exactly. So when growing up, like what lit you up? Like, why does that play into why you do this work today?
So I grew up in a family that was very, sort of, not, I don't want to say pursuit oriented, but it certainly spoke to me on that. My dad was an entrepreneur and my mom worked with my dad, but they were very much that you have a strong work ethic and that you pursue something that is of passion, that you pursue something that lights you up. So they were always on about picking the thing that felt good to you. And so when the psychic thing showed up for me, it was like, while I can do the mediumship and while I can speak to the other side, it wasn't lighting me up. I wanted to work with people who were on the precipice of their own change. I wanted to work with people who were moving into entrepreneurship, who were looking to take big leaps, but were clinging to the rock and looking for flow. So that's really like when I started looking at it, how did it feel to me as a psychic, and how could I create impact and ease for people? That was just it. Like, how can I help people unwrap themselves and unfurl themselves from the safety and the security of what we've created in our lives?
True. So could you share a little bit, maybe a vulnerable story about your life or business, like what it was like being misaligned, and how did you get back into alignment? Because I'm sure through that process, when your abilities just exploded, right? Like there was a lot of parts of yourself that wasn't fully integrated that you needed to work through. Like, what was it that that allowed you to get through that process of that misalignment, or that didn't feel good?
Yeah. And just for total transparency, I don't want to lie. I'm in one of those right now, to be quite frank. Like, just because you have the tools and the techniques doesn't mean that you don't have to go back and rely on them. So as a psychic, oftentimes, I'm not necessarily getting the messages that I need for myself as good as I can be for other people. I'm great at seeing the explanation for others, but for myself, it's tougher because I'm emotionally attached to it. So we have in our family and our family business a little bit of an earthquake situation happening right now, wherein my husband's business is going through a wobbly. And it's been really interesting because this analogy of clinging to the rock, even as I was saying it, I was like, oh, that's us right now. And I've been getting this really phenomenal feedback. So right before the beginning of the new year, before all this came down, I kept getting the word prepare. prepare. And I thought maybe the apocalypse was coming. And so I joined the gym and was like, maybe I should start running in case it's zombies. I'll want to, be sure to get away. And as like this story sort of unfolded in our lives, I was like, aha, prepare. That makes sense. The other thing that kept showing up was get your math in order, like really get your house and your books in order so that you know how to do that. So I started getting our books in order and noticing, okay, what we can skim back on and what needs to be pulled back on, because the ego tends to go on fire when underneath you. So what my intuition was telling me was get your house in order, get your money in order, be prepared for all of this stuff. So as we've been doing this, it's been really fascinating. Like the first 2 weeks was drink too much, talk too much, stay up too late, and worry. That was the first 2 weeks of the process. The final 3 weeks of the process was do the math, really button up, figure out our value system, what really is important to us and our family, and what opportunities are available to us. I think a lot of times what we do is we get really closed-minded about what we can have and how we can create solution to the problems. And again, the ego is going to try to create the solution like a ping pong ball. Whereas the intuition is going to really open up some things, and they might scare you and they might transition you. In our current situation, we keep looking at moving, literally selling everything we own, which we own 2 properties here in Colorado, selling everything we own and moving to a very small town away from everybody that we know. And what's crazy is it keeps showing up. Every time we get comfortable with staying here where we are currently comfortable, this town shows up. And so we are exploring moving, and that's something we're doing this week. So intuitively, we are uncomfortable, vulnerable, scared shitless. Things are very much up in the air right now. And we are totally working in trust. And one of the things intuitively that I keep getting is like, don't cling to the rock. Like, we have this idea of stability. And what if stability is actually the prison we're living in? Right? So what if you could be free without stability? What if stability is just the illusion that we've created for ourselves? So through that, I've been doing a ton of meditating and really working on truly being still, which for me is impossible in so many ways. Stillness is not something I do well, but for me, even I've been working on stillness because I can sense and feel that
So
so we in our family, like the intuition and the ego have to work in tandem for our worlds to work. So when we are in an upset or earthquake in our businesses, our careers, our lives, our loved lives, what the ego's job is to come in and create solution and make you super uncomfortable. So knowing this as an intuitive, my husband and I really just started making a plan. We went from prepare to doing math to really looking at the value of our houses, to the value of our lives, and really what it was that ultimately we wanted to do. But we had to feed sort of the ego aspect of the brain first before we could move into the more intuitive aspect. And so intuitively, what's been really interesting is we've gotten now to a place, because we're so clear about our worth, that all of a sudden intuitively we keep selling everything, our houses, our businesses, everything, and moving to a teeny little town outside of our sort of normal lifestyle, to a place that virtually has no jobs, virtually might not have a potential career. But intuitively, what keeps happening is sort of the psychic pull is taking us to a place we wouldn't have predicted ourselves. And that's the thing about intuition, is like, when you find and create stillness for yourself, when you find and allow for your intuition to take over, and you've arranged for your ego to get the information it needs. And really what the ego wants is, I want to know that I'm safe. I want to know that I have a roof over my head, and I want to know that I'm going to be able to put food in my belly. The ego thinks we're being chased. The ego thinks that everything that is change or different is going to kill us. And the intuition is the one that delivers random ideas and awesome possibilities and totally out there things that maybe the ego would have never thought about. And I think for me anyways, in this vulnerable place, it's been, a few weeks of alcohol, a few weeks of meditation, and a few weeks of just sitting in this and waiting for the answer to come out. And I think that when you have the tools for intuition, you can kind of go through all the phases quicker. Whereas a lot of us will get totally stuck in ego and not come up for air. So I feel like that's the ease, or that's the flow, or that's the learning how to let go of the rock. We're all going to cling to the rock. We're all going to be in the river and scared and not sure if we're really willing to let go. But I think the more in tune you are with your own intuition, the easier it becomes to go, I think I can let go and see where this thing takes me.
I love that story. Like, it's so relevant right now. Everyone is going through some kind of crazy episode that's pulling us to the change that needs to happen.
Well, and I'm curious for you, and if you can speak to this as well, because for myself, I don't adhere to the American New Year. So in America, the idea is that there's this magic finish line, that like one day you're standing in 2018, and that like literally everything's going to change and be better when the clock strikes midnight. And people on what day is it? It's day 6, January 6th in America. And everybody's already like, this is going to be the crappiest year of my life because everything will change on this magic day. And what I always like to say is like, there is sort of, I found in 2018, we did a lot of what we call shadow work in the spiritual world, meaning we got to do a lot of looking at the negative space in our lives, the places that we don't want to visit, the aspects of ourselves maybe we've been trying to ignore or get away from. And 2018 really flipped a lot of people, and we were in the mud looking at stuff. But the good news is that we got a lot of work done, and we can sort of brush and dust ourselves off and start a new year. But that's just it, is I think 2018, for those of us who didn't, I was very lucky. 2018 was a fabulous year right into the end. And then this earthquake happened. and I laughed at it because I was like, all right, so it didn't get me and now it's getting me. And I have to go look at my business because I didn't look at my business all year long. And so I'm not done with 2018, even though we're in 2019. I look, and this is my question to you, living especially in Asia, I don't start celebrating 2019 till Chinese New Year. And I really look at the American New Year as an invitation to begin stretching into the new year. And what that means is like, I'm literally dusting off 2018 and I'm really preparing, again, and there's that word prepare, for 2019. And I'm assuming that instead of looking at the negative space of 2018 of what didn't work or what I'm mad about, I'm actually using 2018 to help catapult me. So I'm building all these great ideas and terrific moments from my year of 2018, going back through my entire calendar from January of 2018 to December of 2018 and building positive off of what happened and all the experiences and all the good things that happened, so that I can build an energetic foundation for what I want to continue working on in 2019. And so I just see this time period right now as like really flexible, gooey, awesome time. And then the magic finish line for me is really Chinese New Year.
It's so true. Now that I'm in Asia, because I've never really been on this side of the world, like it's so different. Like the energy is so different. The people is so different. The way that they operate is so different. So like we are sort of ahead of time, you could say, but like seriously, like we have not really let go of things and we haven't really completed what we need to do. And so it's awesome to hear that like you're going through that right now. Like it's going to take another month or two before you kind of get back into your like stability, you could say, right? And it's asking you to like create the freedom based from within and not from the stuff that's already there, which is huge.
And I beg anybody to just try that idea of the stability isn't, we are making stability the problem. And creating freedom within is like knowing you don't need all that stuff.
Exactly. Yeah.
So scary.
So scary. Last year was actually for me
Yeah.
the releasing of the rack, because we
Yeah.
really sold everything. We have really nothing but our suitcases and ourselves. And we learned what freedom and our values and family and community meant to us by not having the physical stuff around us anymore, which is huge. Like, and then actually a couple of days ago, I realized like how big it is. What I just went through the past, I don't know, like 4 to 6 months, because that was like back in June. Like how big it is, that transition is when you, when everything under you is no longer there, like physically, right? Like all the fear came up and all the things that I did address in last year in 2018, but like to build the new foundation without the physical stuff is big. And I cried and cried and going like, wow, like I didn't realize how big it was. And now it's like hit me in the head. Like,
Yeah.
wow, it is big. Do I really want to travel? This is really important to me. Like, what is important? And without that foundation, which it sounds like what you guys are going to go through, like in the next year, like
so weird, not weird, so weird, but not weird, right?
Yeah.
This is the flow, guys. In case you're curious, the flow is when you show up on a podcast or a video with somebody and they're telling your story back to you and have already gone through it. That's flow.
Yeah, it's so amazing that we can actually embody something else for the other person and hold that space for the other person as well. Like I'm sure we're going to flip it over soon as well, so maybe we'll find some place we want to be, but I'm not sure yet what's going to happen. But that inner freedom is something that I think like we have to learn how to create and be okay with that, like no matter the circumstances of whatever happens, right? We've been through earthquakes as well in Bali and going like, what the heck? Like the whole world is shaking under us. I don't want to be in Bali anymore.
Yeah, literal earthquakes, for sure. I mean, I think you're in probably speaking of spiritualism, like I was, how old was I? I was 24 when I first went to Thailand, and was not a psychic at the time, but whoa, did it blow open that space for me without even recognizing it. I think that was probably the first spiritual experience of my life, was sitting in Thailand. And I was in a village not far from where you are right now in the Tak province called Mae Sot, Thailand. And we were working with the Burmese refugees, or the now Myanmar refugees as they more aptly be referred to. But certainly like my first experience visiting a Buddhist wat, my first experience seeing a monk prepare to go, like he was a man one day and he was a monk the next day, and watching that preparation was so astounding. And just seeing the care and the time that every day, the ritual of putting the incense in the spirit house and spending a moment of prayer every day with the spirits, like those were things that I really took home from the experience of Thailand. And I remember coming back to the US after 3 months in Thailand, and the first conversation that I had, and I hope that you relate to this as well, first conversation I have with adults is they're talking about Pottery Barn and cars that they need. And I've just come from a place where like these people are like lucky to get the whole chicken today. Like they just plucked feathers off of a chicken in a market, and you want to talk to me about Pottery Barn. And I feel like that's the skew, is like the stability in which we've created is this idea or notion that comparison and things are what actualize stability. Whereas in truth, it's like the freedom of spirit is to have and need nothing but the family and the love inside, you know?
Oh, I love that. I think that's like our message today.
Totally. Yes. But it's really big, and I don't expect anybody to get it because we're still works in progress too. Yeah. But if anybody does get it, can they call us and like give us their 411?
And that comes back to the last question, which is like, how do you define success?
How do I define success?
Yeah.
Yes. You know what's really funny? So I am really, it's interesting that this question is showing up because it's something that I'm really playing with right now. I am interviewing, and I have goosebumps in saying this, I'm interviewing women who we assign success to, meaning that they have created businesses and they've made an assumption of money that we assume to be quote unquote success. And I can honestly tell you at this stage, having interviewed the women that I have, they're nowhere near successful by their own minds and being. And I say that not frivolously, and that they've generated the picture of American success. They've generated the idea of what we consider to be success, but they themselves haven't defined it as such. And it's not because they're trying to achieve bigger, better still. Rather, the latter, they're actually working to achieve this freedom that we're just talking about. And the definition of success for me at this stage is really the understanding of the profound freedom. And freedom is one of those words, and assumed stability to freedom if I had enough. But as we begin to define the word, what is enough, we can actually then back off of stability and start defining success as it means in our heart, I think, and what it means in our value system and with our family. And I think true success comes from the clarity of truly not needing much and understanding the value of what matters most in your life and in your real life, not in your ego life.
Ooh, oh my God.
Yeah.
That's like golden nuggets right there, what you just said.
Right. I know. But again, work in progress. I like to be really clear that while we work with people and help people for their clarity, I don't want to ever come across as guru, like I've got this figured out. Rather, I might be one step ahead, or, but I'm still working on all this myself.
Yeah. And that's the beauty of it, is that like we're all in our own space. Like we have to realize like we all at a certain point, like some are here and some are there and some are over here, but it's like fine because we are all on the same journey. It's just different. And we have to respect the transition that we are at and where we are at right now, and not try to push like, hey, I have to be here and I have to look all nice, because it's not true at all. We don't look all nice at all through the process.
No, it's like night sweats. It's like night sweats and sometimes hangovers and like really not great moments. Like process takes time for everybody. And I think that's the big thing though too, is like, can we give some allowance to the process of grief? Because I feel like in transition, there's a shedding process. Like, I don't know if the snake grieves the skin he's losing as he's itching it off of his body. I don't know if the snake grieves that previous layer of skin, but I know for myself as a human, I grieve it. And I see it sort of like, I think we sort of go through the caterpillar, chrysalis, butterfly phase a multitude of times in our lives. And just about the time that we get comfortable, I call that the caterpillar phase. Like one day you're hanging in the grass and everything feels really easy. And then you're like, dude, I think I'm going to climb a tree and I'm going to put myself in a cocoon and I'm going to hang out. Oh shit, I'm goo. I wasn't expecting that. I was not expecting to be alone in the dark and be goo. This was not what I signed up for. And it's in that goo that you're transitioning, right? And you're all alone and it feels real weird and you can't find your arms or your hands or the way, and there's no light, and you're hoping that the dark ends eventually and you just don't know. And you're hanging out in that. And then one day out pops this beautiful butterfly, and everybody subscribes to the butterfly and says the butterfly is my spirit animal. Well, here's what I have to say about the damn butterfly. Imagine one day you were eating grass and the next day God said, fly, bitch, fly. That's scary.
Yeah.
That's scary. Like, I'd be angry. I would be pissed. That transition is not easy or fun per se. And one day the wind will catch your wings and you will fly. But for the first few minutes, you might be just scared motherfucking shitless. And I think that's okay.
true. Oh my God, you're like totally explaining our life in total transition, in total, like that's just the way it is. Like we only want to look at the butterfly. We don't want to look at the times when we are a caterpillar and going like, totally fine, I'm comfortable.
Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much. This was like an
Yeah.
awesome episode. I
And
think I laughed.
those of us, I feel like that's the process too. Yeah. Oh, thank you. Oh, I'm so glad. That's awesome.
All right.
I hope you can get the first part edited in.
We'll see how it goes. But thank you guys all for listening in, and please do share with us, like, how can we contact you and like follow you,
absolutely,
and get all the updates. So share with us maybe like how we could
freebie. I have this amazing. Yes. So you can find me at willowbradner.com. And I have an amazing freebie. So if you are just still new to the intuition, or you're a regular intuitive person, I have a great little mini course that you get that is a video, and it teaches you how to get and ignite your intuition. And with that, you'll then get an email with 4 more master classes just like it. It's amazing. So if you're wanting to tune in and tune up your intuition, you get 5 free master classes with me. And then I do work one-to-one with people. Believe it or not, I still like to hang out with human beings. So feel free to as well schedule me anytime you like. If you just want to do a quick reading, or if you want to look at your business, that is my strong suit, is really doing psychic entrepreneurial work. So if that's in your zone, let me know. And again, it's willowbradner.com. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for taking time for us. And we were so blessed to be in your space. And so everyone else.
Thank you. And in the words of Thai, I will say, yes, I just wanted to say in Thai, kapun ka, as you are in Thailand now. So I just want to say that as a sign off.
Yes. Thank you so much. So we'll continue my interview series every 2 weeks or so. I always share some beautiful content from amazing 6-figure, 7-figure entrepreneurs who are sharing their master genius in the world, who are masters at what they do. So thank you so much, Willow, for our time together, and we'll be seeing all of you guys all soon. Aloha. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.